It's predicated on the understanding that Parliament spends quite a large sum of money on training of its staff, its members of Parliament, and all other people who work with it. In the process, the CPST has grown. It is now on its highway to become a full-fledged institution with a linkage to one of our top universities, the University of Nairobi, where we have an existing memorandum of understanding.
After every election cycle, the leaders that join the county assemblies or the National Assembly are drawn from different backgrounds. No one comes here with the knowledge on how to be an effective representative, whether a member of parliament, a senator, or a member of the county assembly. And therefore, it's very critical that before even they embark on their roles as people mandated to oversight governments, they're equipped fully to undertake that mandate.
CPST has had profound impact on members of parliament in the National Assembly and our staff. The training that CPST has offered over the years and the collaboration with other institutions has enabled the members of National Assembly to be more responsive to undertake their duties of oversight and representation better. It has made our work easier as clerk and staff of the National Assembly with respect to capacity building.
Now, when we talk about CPST and the impact that it has had on the Senate, between the CPST and the Senate, we form a formidable partnership for being able to support the counties and their governments in their training needs. But more than that, CPST also has trained and continues to train and build the capacity of our staffers. And we are looking at CPST being the premier legislative training organization globally.
I must say that CPST is our key institution of parliament. We work very closely. The Parliamentary Joint Services works with the CPST in ensuring that the staff that are identified that work with CPST to develop programs, curricula, and training opportunities to serve members of parliament who are then after that able to undertake their mandate. But most importantly is the synergies that we have built across the institution, and more specifically from joint services to give CPST the necessary support that is needed, including project development. For example, the project that is going on at the new CPST, I want to call it new CPST, is being developed under the guidance of my office, and I'm happy that it's progressing very well.
As to our mission, again, it captures or follows with our mandates, is to enhance capacity development for effective and efficient functioning of parliaments, other legislative assemblies, and other stakeholders. That institution is going to be the center of excellence for real, for Africa and beyond. People will come to Kenya. There will be people coming to Kenya to learn. We are going to have a depository of knowledge. We are introducing our fellowship program. It's awaiting to be considered by the board. That fellowship will bring in academics, postdoctorals, postgraduates, people who have done a master's. They come here, spend 2 years, enhance their research in parliamentary and democracy, and this will be deposited within the CPST. This will be the place where former members of parliament will be gathering at what we are calling the former members of parliament in a kind of social club. Why? Because they need a place they can share their knowledge.
CPST, the Center for Parliamentary Studies, Training and Studies, was mooted and regulated within the context of the Parliamentary Service Commission Act. The purpose of setting up the CPST was predicated on the understanding that Parliament spends quite a large sum of money on training of its staff, its members of parliament, and all other people who work with it. In the process, the CPST has grown. It is now on its highway to become a full-fledged institution with a linkage to one of our top universities, the University of Nairobi, where we have an existing memorandum of understanding.
After every election cycle, the leaders that join the county assemblies or the National Assembly are drawn from different backgrounds. No one comes here with the knowledge on how to be an effective representative, whether a member of parliament, a senator, or a member of the county assembly. And therefore, it's very critical that before even they embark on their roles as people mandated to oversight governments, they're equipped fully to undertake that mandate.
The CPST has had profound impact on members of parliament in the National Assembly and our staff. The training that CPST has offered over the years and the collaboration with other institutions has enabled the members of National Assembly to be more responsive to undertake their duties of oversight and representation better. It has made our work easier as clerk and staff of the National Assembly with respect to capacity building.
Now, when we talk about CPST and the impact that it has had on the Senate, between the CPST and the Senate, we form a formidable partnership for being able to support the counties and their governments in their training needs. But more than that, CPST also has trained and continues to train and build the capacity of our staffers. And we are looking at CPST being the premier legislative training organization globally.
I must say that CPST is our key institution of parliament. We work very closely. The Parliamentary Joint Services works with the CPST in ensuring that the staff that are identified that work with CPST to develop programs, curricula, and training opportunities to serve members of parliament who are then after that able to undertake their mandate. But most importantly is the synergies that we have built across the institution, and more specifically from joint services to give CPST the necessary support that is needed, including projects development. For example, the project that is going on at the new CPST, I want to call it new CPST, is being developed under the guidance of my office, and I'm happy that it's progressing very well.
As to our mission, again, it captures or follows with our mandates, is to enhance capacity development for effective and efficient functioning of parliaments, other legislative assemblies, and other stakeholders. That institution is going to be the center of excellence for real, for Africa and beyond. People will come to Kenya. There will be people coming to Kenya to learn. We are going to have a depository of knowledge. We are introducing our fellowship program. It's awaiting to be considered by the board. And that fellowship will bring in academics, postdoctorals, postgraduates, people who have done a master's, they come here, spend 2 years, enhance their research in parliamentary and democracy, and this will be deposited within the CPST. This will be the place where former members of parliament will be gathering at what we are calling the former members of parliament in a kind of social club. Why? Because they need a place they can share their knowledge.
CPST, the Center for Parliamentary Studies, Training and Studies, was mooted and regulated within the context of the Parliamentary Service Commission Act. The purpose of setting up the CPST was predicated on the understanding that Parliament spends quite a large sum of money on training of its staff, its members of parliament, and all other people who work with it. In the process, the CPST has grown. It is now on its highway to become a full-fledged institution with a linkage to one of our top universities, the University of Nairobi, where we have an existing memorandum of understanding.
After every election cycle, the leaders that join the county assemblies or the National Assembly are drawn from different backgrounds. No one comes here with the knowledge on how to be an effective representative, whether a member of parliament, a senator, or a member of the county assembly. And therefore, it's very critical that before even they embark on their roles as people mandated to oversight governments, they're equipped fully to undertake that mandate.
CPST has had profound impact on members of parliament in the National Assembly and our staff. The training that CPST has offered over the years and the collaboration with other institutions has enabled the members of National Assembly to be more responsive to undertake their duties of oversight and representation better. It has made our work easier as clerk and staff of the National Assembly with respect to capacity building.
Now, when we talk about CPST and the impact that it has had on the Senate, between us, between the CPST and the Senate, we form a formidable partnership for being able to support the counties and their governments in their training needs. But more than that, CPST also has trained and continues to train and build the capacity of our staffers. And we are looking at CPST being the premier legislative training organization globally.
I must say that CPST is our key institution of parliament. We work very closely. The Parliamentary Joint Services works with the CPST in ensuring that the staffing, the staff that are identified that work with CPST to develop programs, curricula, and training opportunities to serve members of parliament who are then after that able to undertake their mandate. But most importantly is the synergies that we have built across the institution, and more specifically from joint services to give CPST the necessary support that is needed, including projects development. For example, a project that is going on at the new CPST, want to call it new CPST, is being developed under the guidance of my office, and I'm happy that it's progressing very well.
As to our mission, again, it captures or follows with our mandates, is to enhance capacity development for effective and efficient functioning of parliaments, other legislative assemblies, and other stakeholders. That institution is going to be the center of excellence for real, for Africa and beyond. People will come to Kenya. There will be people coming to Kenya to learn. We are going to have a depository of knowledge. We are introducing our fellowship program. It's awaiting to be considered by the board. And that fellowship will bring in academics, postdoctorals, postgraduates, people who have done a master's, they come here, spend 2 years, enhance their research in parliamentary and democracy, and this will be deposited within the CPST. This will be the place where former members of parliament will be gathering at what we are calling the former members of parliament in a kind of social club. Why? Because they need a place they can share their knowledge.
Nataka hujafunga hizi zote.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar of this year and our first webinar in conjunction with Strathmore University, where I'm an alma mater. I'm an alumni of Strathmore University, so I'm very proud to be part of this initiative. My name is Wayua Mutisia, the chairperson to the webinar committee, and we are happy to have everybody on board. We do appreciate you for taking the time to join us. We appreciate you for all the support you've given us in all our webinars. And thanks to you, now we can officially say that this is our 18th webinar since inception of the program in 2021. I'll hand it over to Professor Nyokabi Kamau, the Executive Director of CPST and the host of this particular webinar, so that she can officially start us off. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wayua. I want to recognize Honorable Senator Tabitha Maureen Mutinda, CBS, Vice Chairperson, Senate Committee of Finance and Budget. I welcome in a special way Mr. Jeremiah Nyegenye, CBS, the Clerk of the Senate of Kenya and the Secretary to the Parliamentary Service Commission. I welcome our keynote speaker today, Dr. Abraham Rugo, PhD, Executive Director, Budget Hub of Kenya, Mrs. Phyllis Macau, the Emeritus Director of the Parliamentary Budget Office, actually pioneer, and she pioneered the Parliamentary Budget Office. Welcome you, Mrs. Phyllis Macau. I also want to welcome Marianne Wanjiku, joining us from IPPG. We are actually co-hosting this webinar with the Strathmore Business School under the IPPG. Distinguished participants, we welcome you all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very good morning. I wish you a very good morning as we come to our first webinar of the year 2026. I think you got a chance to know who we are. CPST is a training arm of the Parliamentary Service Commission, established back in the year 2011, but got into the Parliamentary Service Act in 2019. We established in Section 34 of the Act. Today's webinar, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished panelists, is a culmination of many conversations that went on from August 2025 between ourselves and the Strathmore Institute of Public Policy and Governance, IPPG. And we had many discussions on how we could run this, and we thought this would be a timely conversation at this point when the country goes into the issues of budget process. And we are very privileged to have these very amazing speakers and discussants, and a very able moderator who I want to invite now as I introduce you, Mr. Clerk. The clerk, Mr. Jeremiah Nyegenye, is the clerk of the Senate, as I said at the beginning, serves as the Secretary to the Parliamentary Service Commission, and Mr. Nyegenye is also a member of the CPST board. Mr. Nyegenye joined the commission way back in the year he became the clerk in 2012. Let me not go into when he joined the commission, but I think it was somewhere around 2006. You correct me if I'm wrong. The clerk is a lawyer of the High Court of Kenya, and he holds a BA, a Bachelor of Laws, LLB, from the University of Nairobi, and a diploma in law from Kenya School of Law. He's an alumnus of Bravantic School of Government in Oxford, where he graduated in 2019 with an Executive Public Leaders Program. Mr. Nyegenye is a known drafter. He's a recognized drafter and holds certificates on the same from the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies in New Orleans and the International Law Institute. Mr. Nyegenye played a very significant role in the making of our Constitution. And we believe, even as he comes to moderate this, he plays a big role and it brings a big input in issues of how we went into devolution and the topic that we are discussing today of funds following functions. Mr. Nyegenye was the inaugural Director of Legal Services in Parliament which was then on in the National Assembly. He worked also in the Attorney General's office, and he also was a private practitioner at some point, and a law lecturer. I wonder, when was that you were lecturing? You've done very many things in your very short life, Mr. Nyegenye. Since 2011, he served as the patron of the Africa Colloquium of Legal Counsel to Parliaments, promoting legislative developments across Africa. He has provided legislative drafting consultancies to the government of Kenya and various international and non-governmental institutions. Mr. Nyegenye, we could not get a better moderator for this topic than you. You know how much passionate you are about this, even as the inaugural clerk of the Senate, the Second Senate of the Republic of Kenya. With those many remarks and introduction, I welcome you, Mr. Nyegenye, to take over the program from here to the end. Karibu sana. But before you come in, sorry, Miss Marianne, sorry, Nyegenye, about that. Miss Marianne, you could have a few minutes to introduce IPPG and how we got into this partnership, and just briefly before Mr. Nyegenye comes on board. Karibu, Marianne.
Thank you very much, Professor Nyokabi. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Marianne Maina from Strathmore University Business School, and the core mandate of the University Business School is to develop great transformational leaders for Africa. And within the business school, we then have the Strathmore Institute of Public Policy and Governance. And our aim has been that we are committed to driving excellence in the public policy space. And we do this through interfacing between government and business. And that's why this partnership that all the conversations that we've been going through with the CPST has been very important, because it's part of government and we are here to basically progress that. We do this through several thematic areas. So part of the thematic areas that our work is in is devolution and public finance. We have trade, investment and digital economy, sustainable development, leadership and governance, and social policy. So we are mainly themed within 3 areas. So we are in research, we invest the policy questions that interface between government and governance. And then we are in executive education. So we have programs that basically are supposed to support the public, the private, and development sectors in basically capacity building and enhancing the mandate of this organization. Just to highlight 2 critical ones. One is devolution and public finance. And there we have Dr. Rugo, who is here, who's been leading that space. And another one that is very critical that I can mention is public leadership in Africa, where we focus on enhancing governance as we work towards achieving Agenda 2063. But we like to partner a lot with different industry players, be able to disseminate and host events, and also partner in research. And one of the things that we've been very successful at doing is through partnership with industry and government, we were then able to support in the development of the National Strategic Investment Plan of Kenya. And this is my call, just to ask you to be able to reach to us so that we can have more partnerships, able to do much more in the space of policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marianne, for that introduction. Mr. Nyegenye, you have the mic. You have about 165 people in the room. Enjoy the time with them. Karibu Clark.
Thank you very much, Professor Nyokabi Kamau. Thank you for that very kind introduction and many kind words. I joined the parliamentary service in 2007. You struggle a little with that. 2007 it was. On the same day with one of the discussants who's coming up later today. I will say a little about that later on. But good morning, everyone. Good morning to our keynote speaker, our discussants. Good morning to all our participants. 173 and counting. It's blowing up. It's very exciting. Everyone has been looking forward to this. We are very happy to be here. I am looking at all the participants. I have one participant has caught my eye in particular. Wanjiro Gekonyo of TISA. has done a lot of work in the area of devolution. She is a guardian angel of devolution. And I have said this publicly before, that I consider Wanjiru Gikonyo to be a patriot and a heroine of the Republic. So I'm very glad to see that Wanjiru Gikonyo is here among the participants today. So welcome everyone to this 18th CPST webinar conference, this one being organized by CPSC in collaboration with Strathmore University on the topic Fiscal Decentralization, Strengthening Devolution by Instituting the Principle that Funds Follow Functions. Now, before I invite our distinguished keynote speaker and our discussants, allow me to locate this discussion to give a little context to the discussion that we are going to have. To my mind, the present conversation is firmly anchored as the very basis, really, of our constitutional order. Under Article 1 of our Constitution, as you will know, all sovereign power belongs to the people, and Article 1 recognizes that the sovereign power of the people is exercised at two levels, namely the national level and the county level. Article 6 then divides the territory of the Republic into the 47 counties that are found at the first schedule to the Constitution. Now, arguably, the most transformative aspect of the current constitutional order, in distinct departure from the previous constitutional order, is the introduction of the system of devolved government, whose objects under Chapter 11 include at Article 174 to promote social and economic development and the provision of proximate, easily accessible services throughout Kenya. Devolution then is about transferring power and resources from central government to the devolved level of government. The functions for which the county governments are responsible are set out in Part 2 of the fourth schedule to the Constitution. They range from agriculture, health services, cultural activities, county transport, trade development, county planning and development, among others. Article 175 of the Constitution provides, as one of the principles of devolved government, that county governments shall have reliable sources of revenue to enable them to govern and deliver services effectively. Chapter 12 of the Constitution, which governs the public finance, at Article 201, requires, as one of the principles of public finance, that the public finance system must promote an equitable society, and in particular, that revenue raised nationally shall be shared equitably among national and county governments. And Article 203 on equitable sharing and other financial laws is categorical that one of the criteria for determining the equitable share is the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. This, therefore, then brings us to the foundational principle in devolution that funds follow functions, the essence of which is that financial resources should be allocated to the level or the entity of government responsible for performing specific functions or delivering specific services. However, in practice, it is not all that easy. It's not all rosy. It's not rosy at all. Many challenges exist in the implementation of this principle and in the overall functioning of the devolved system of governance. So this is what we are all about today. And to lead us in reflections on the topic of our webinar today is our keynote speaker, Dr. Abraham Rugo, and two discussants whom I will introduce at the opportune time. So starting with Dr. Rugo, our keynote speaker today, he is the Executive Director of Budget Hub Kenya. Dr. Rugo is passionate and committed to advancing local government He has a wealth of experience in decentralization, participatory governance, and public finance management in Kenya. His work has entailed supporting citizens to participate in and advocate for improved service delivery by government at national and local level. This has been through research, policy analysis and advocacy, facilitating capacity development programs, and engaging in public debate and educational conversations. He believes in being locally rooted and globally connected. He has been the executive director of Bajeti Hub based in Nairobi since July 2017. And previously, he worked at Focus Kenya between 2005 and 2007, at the Institute of Economic Affairs between 2007 and 2013, and as a public policy and devolution consultant between 2014 and 2017. Dr. Rugo holds a master's degree and a doctorate in public finance management from the University of Potsdam in Germany. From over 20 years of leadership experience, he derives joy in seeing people and teams thrive in all ways. I might add that we have previously at the Senate had occasion to invite Dr. Rugo to speak to us. And I think we are privileged to have Dr. Rugo lead our discussion today as a keynote speaker. The floor is yours, Dr. Rugo. Welcome. You have 30 minutes. Take it away. Dr. Rugo, please turn on your mic. You are not audible.
Good. Please confirm that you can
Now
hear me.
Now you have 29 minutes.
Good. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be able to join us. To be able to join us today for this conversation, and I really look forward to a very this very timely conversation. To reflect with us. I have spent my entire working life working on devolution and public finance for the last 20 years, and therefore it's my joy to be able. But allow me first to introduce Bajeti Hub. Bajeti Hub, for those who perhaps might not be aware, is what we used to be formerly called International Budget Partnership Kenya. Is a Kenyan non-profit organization, and we focus on transparency, accountability, participation, and equity Faith, you might want to mute. Thanks. And at the national and subnational level, and our focus really is the strengthening the impact of civil society and citizens in being able to advance. And that's a photo there, put there deliberately to show that these are young Kenyans who are passionately trying to build our country. But allow me to start to locate this conversation a bit even more deeply, and thank you so much, Clark, for bringing us to speed on some of the things that I was going to speak about, but I will not even go deeper into them because you mentioned them. But it's important for us to establish the why of Kenya's devolution, because it's the why of the devolution system that informs the mode of financing, and not the mode of financing that informs the structure of devolution. As such, that we set ourselves and give ourselves in the Constitution of Kenya in Article 174, and I want to really specifically mention this, that the objects of devolution of government, not creation of county governments, because devolution is not about the creation of county governments. Devolution is about the distribution of power to deliver functions and provide public services across the republic, as has been mentioned before, between the national government and county governments. In this case, one national government and 47 county governments. But some of the reasons why we devolved is to ensure that there is a promotion of democratic and accountable exercise of power, to foster national unity, to give powers of self-governance to the people and ensure the participation of their participation, to recognize the right of communities to manage their own affairs. And the whole place of public participation comes in very, very strongly here, to protect and promote the interests and the rights of minorities and marginalized communities that had hitherto been discriminated against, to promote social and economic development, and the provision of proximate, easily accessible service throughout the Republic of Kenya, and to ensure equitable sharing of national and local resources throughout Kenya. equitable sharing. I emphasize those words because I will come back to them. And to facilitate the decentralization of state organs, their functions and services from the capital of Kenya, and to enhance checks and balances. And therefore, as we evaluate on whether funds are following functions and whether functions are being performed, let us keep this why at the back of our mind, because this is the reason why we are engaging in this entire conversation. Now, the principle of funds following functions is embedded in the concept of in the concept and provision of fiscal decentralization, which basically is that when you establish a mechanism where there is sharing of power and to deliver services, you need to also distribute the power to raise taxes. In other words, to be able to raise taxes and spend those taxes with this, which is a principle we call clarity in expenditure and revenue assignment, that you allocate the right expenditure to the right level of government and you allocate also revenue sources to that level of government. To do that, again, you institute an intergovernmental fiscal transfer system and mechanism. In this case, where you say first, since not all counties, not all local government institutions or all subnational institutions will have the same power to raise revenue, then how do we distribute? And I'll come back to that. And then lastly, that then those financial resources especially must match the assigned powers and responsibilities for each level of government. Now, in our constitution, and I'll just mention a few of the things that I think are important, is that we provide that public services are to be provided by these two levels of government, and it is to ensure that people have access to public services across the republic. In other words, funds are not an end in themselves. Secondly, is that Article 202 requires that nationally raised revenue is shared equitably between both levels of government. Nationally raised revenue. And I will be coming back later to ask, what is nationally raised revenue? Because it is important for us to now debate and disturb ourselves with that question, because it is becoming more and more important. But thirdly, is that functions and powers, there are three sets of functions and powers that are set out in our constitution. First of all, is exclusive functions. And here I'll be referring us to Article 186, but also Schedule 4 of the Constitution of Kenya, that there are exclusive functions. Functions like foreign affairs is exclusive to the national government. Functions such as provision of primary healthcare is exclusive to the county government. Then you have concurrent functions that are shared. So for instance, we have some aspects even in healthcare where you basically have, policy making is at the national level, but provision is at the county level. Trade management and trade, development, again, is shared. Housing and the like. And then you have residual functions. Any function that does not necessarily fit any level is residual to the national government. But most important is that Article 203 sets out the criteria for equitable sharing, including the bottom threshold of allocations to county governments. That Article 203 sets out a long criteria of about 10 articles, which basically are to provide on how then we go about the concept of funds following functions. Important to emphasize is that it is functions that inform the kind of funds that should actually be coming into application. Now, but what is the practice? The practice is that for over a decade, we seem to be just focused on just ensuring that the 15% minimum, which is according to Article 203, 2, is maintained, which basically does not reflect the actual cost of service provision by counties, and I'll be showing that shortly. 2, service delivery and reality and demands shows that, that there's more focus on compliance on paper, which basically shows that even the county, sometimes the national government actually gets a reduced allocation, but counties remain short of resources compared to the services that they are assigned. Thirdly, what we see in practice is that the process is definitely political rather than technical. We think it's a balance of both. Yes, it's political, but it should also be based on technical, because it's only in technical that you ensure that you don't have the current situations where a lot of the decisions are not necessarily informed by the actual revenue collected. Because revenue collection is supposed to be distribution is supposed to be 15% of the revenue collection, but not informed by the latest audited financial statements of the country. Currently, we are working with the 2020-2021, if I'm not wrong. Inflationary pressures, they are affecting both levels, and you'll be seeing how that has been playing and the real cost of delivering the functions assigned. The practice is what you see on that table. And here we have generated from 2013 to 2025. So basically just to show you. And what you notice there is that there's been a fluctuation. We started with about 20.7% of ordinary revenue based on the most recent audited accounts. In 2013, going to counties, 79.3 going to national government. Then that increased up to about 22.5%. In 2015, 2016, then notice it starts going down from 2017, 2018, when we were just in the second cycle, entering the second cycle of devolution. And now we are at 15.7% of ordinary revenue based on the most recent. Now, if you now calculate these based on actuals, we are basically at 10%. And the question to ask here, are county governments responsible of only 10%? For instance, county governments are responsible for 90% of the health facilities. If you take health facilities at level 2 and level 3, that is the dispensaries and the health centers and every other infrastructure. They are responsible for the entire support of agricultural extension services. They are responsible for rural roads, as it were. Is this allocation then matching? And therefore that already starts telling you that there seems to be a skewedness towards how much is available to county governments. And is the national government responsible for 84.3%, or is this just resources that have been retained for functions that should hitherto actually be transferred? And this is some of the effort that basically went into IGTRC, gazetting in September of 2025. Though curiously, it's actually that gazette notice seems not to be available on Kenya law unless it's already back. Gazette number 188. Showing which functions need to be transferred, and then therefore, the resources that need to follow. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll come back to that. Now, I have put this table here, not so much to do the calculations, but to illustrate something very important. Now, Article 203, which I referred to earlier, says that the following criteria, and allow me just to read it from the Constitution, shall be taken into account in determining the equitable shares provided in Article 202 and in all national legislation concerning county government enacted in terms of this chapter. The national interest, any provision that must be made in respect of the public debt and other national obligations, the needs of the national government determined by objective criteria, the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform functions allocated to them, the fiscal capacity and efficiency of county governments, development and other needs, economic disparities, the need for affirmative action, the need for economic optimization, the desirability of stable and predictable allocations of revenue, and the need for flexibility in responding to emergencies. Now, the question here is, how should Article 203, this criteria, be interpreted, and who should interpret it? Is it to be interpreted purely by the national government? Now, national government, I go back now to my earlier point, national government plays two roles. One role is that it is one part. If you say two sides of the coin of the devolution coin, it's one part of the devolution discussion, because according to the Schedule 4, functions have been distributed between the national government and county governments. But secondly, the national government also performs national responsibilities in the sense that the revenue that is raised nationally in Article 202, revenue raised nationally, it is the national government that has a responsibility to raise this revenue nationally. Now, of course, there is a big question of what is this revenue raised nationally? For example, is the A in A, appropriations in aid, are the charges, for instance, taken by NTSA, national revenue, because they are calculated as part of what is taken by, of course, one could argue that these are responsibilities that are excluded in Article 206. Is public debt national revenue? Is some of the charges that are charged across the country in all sectors. Because if one was to argue that the collections, the own source revenue for Makueni County remains only in Makueni County, should then same logic be applied that for all revenue that the national government collects that is collected across the entire country, just like PAYE and VAT, should be national revenue, which then would increase the figures that you see on that top line there, because you see it excludes appropriations in aid, and that already in a year like 2025, 2026 accounts for about 550 billion, as it were. But the second thing is what entails national interest, because what happens is that A, B, C, D, and E, and F are first of all removed from the total calculation, and then you see G there, balance to be shared by the two levels of government. We, as Budgeti Hub, have raised this concern for the last many years. We think this calculation does not represent the constitutional principle, because all the things above, a lot of them, save for national obligations like pensions, some of the consolidated fund services. I am placing this here because I think this is a debate that needs to be dealt. Should this or not be based on Article 6 of cooperation and consensus, so that it is an agreed assessment of how? Because then what happens is that then the national government, through the national treasury, carries the first day, and allow me to go to the next, by interpreting what is national interest. An example is what you see on that table: enhancement of security operations, national irrigation and fertilizer clearance. One could argue irrigation and fertilizer is actually an agricultural function that should be going to the county government. Youth empowerment, one could argue that based on function 14 on empowerment of communities to participate, is actually a county function. National social safety net, primary school digital literacy program, that is clearly a national government function because it falls. But the school examinations fees subsidy, we can debate all that because that's also part of national government responsibility, because they are responsible for education. Now, why this is important is that we think the concept that now has come up called shareable revenue replaces the constitutional provision of equitable sharing. Because shareable revenue is now an interpretation of the national government, having excluded everything that the national government considers to be important to it, and therefore whatever remains then is shared between the national government. And when you do that calculation, for instance, you see that in column H, in the financial year 25-2026, the national government is even getting a negative allocation. And in the other in the other years, it's getting some 53 billion in the current in the previous financial year is getting 53. And when you do that calculation, then you arrive at a very different percentage of allocation, which then is above the 15%. I think that this is a big area that then becomes a critical, because this is the division of revenue. And as you can see, I pulled this from the division of revenue bill for 2025, the one that we are currently. So what national interest is, and we think that it is time for us to remove this discussion around shareable revenue and return to the constitutional provision of equitable sharing of nationally raised revenue. But there is also another macro fiscal reality on devolution that is having an impact on the discussions we have today. And this is the impact of public debt. Now, public debt is a first charge, which further limits the extent to which funds can truly follow functions. In other words, it squeezes out the fiscal space. And as you remember, I had asked a question earlier: should public debt, the procured debt, whether it's for building roads or building schools or helping to improve health infrastructure or ICT, should it also be considered as part of nationally raised revenue, so that then we can engage in the equity? Whether the national government is the one to spend in the different counties, it be part of the equity conversation, so that then we can be able to have an equity conversation of how this spending is distributed. So see that line, you see the public debt service. In 2024-2025, we are at about 1.3 trillion. That is the year that we have just ended, and the coming year we are going to be again at about 1.6 or thereabout trillion. That compared to 0.45, which is basically 450,000. And now what the important thing is for you to notice that the blue line is increasing significantly faster, which is the repayment of public debt service, whereas the yellow line where service provision is happening is actually lined almost at the same level. And that should concern us, because then it means that paying public debt, which we are yet to have a conversation on how equitably distributed, is becoming a fast charge. Then it further squeezes out what you can be able to distribute, what you can be able to share. And therefore, this then brings us to the discussion of how do we then ensure that we have predictability and sustainability in financing, other than the funds, the functions as allocated to either level of government are actually, are predictable. Now, you saw the economy, for instance, in this particular financial year is projected to grow by 5.3%. Now, resource sharing must then adjust in line with that expanding revenue envelope. But even when there has been shortfalls in revenue collection, we have maintained about 11%, year-on-year increment. But as I will demonstrate later, the allocation to county governments does not necessarily match that kind of a growth as it were. And therefore, allocations also, we think, must factor in inflationary pressures to remain realistic and responsive to needs. But allow me to say something else before I go back to the numbers, which has to do with how then do we know what are the appropriate funds to be allocated to ensure that functions are being delivered. And therefore, this brings us back to a conversation that was pursued very heavily in the period 2014 to 2015 by the then Transition Authority and the Commission for Implementation of the Constitution, and recently by the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Relations Technical Committee, which has to do with unbundling, costing, and transfer of functions. And here, it is important for us to note that functions must be clearly defined, costed, and formally transferred to the correct level of government. In other words, the subsidiarity principle in devolution indicates that functions should be performed by the most appropriate level. Article 187, 188, and 189, in fact, provide for the reverse transfer of functions. In other words, if a function is to be performed by a county government, but it is most appropriate to be managed by the national government, it can be transferred to the national government. If a function is most appropriate, so for instance, the running, not the employment of teachers, but the running of primary schools, the preparation, for instance, you have seen, school feeding programs and what have you, since they are more appropriately, could be managed at the county level, they become functions at the county level. And therefore, funds cannot accurately follow functions if those functions are not clearly defined, assigned, or unbundled, as I have said. But in the recent past, of course, we have seen, in the recent past, significant progress has been made following the gazettement of the unbundled functions of the IGTRC. But this is yet to be followed by the respective resources that are needed. But suppose perhaps somebody could be wondering, are you saying that we need to cost every aspect of service delivery? A good part of it is difficult, and I haven't come across a place in the world where they have fully costed. But we can work out the proportions. For instance, after 13 years of implementing the devolution structure, I believe it is now clear at the county government level to be able to say how much it costs to run a health center or a dispensary effectively, how much it costs to set up an early childhood development and education. And then having worked that, at that level of costing, then we can say, then what proportion of the available revenue should then go, because you're not going to have sufficient funds for everything that is to be. And therefore that then, when we transfer functions, then we have a proportion, or we have an approximate cost of how much that takes. And therefore, there is need for a conversation about unbundling functions, so that must include the broader macro fiscal realities, as I have said. and funds following functions goes beyond the financial resources, but must also include the human resources, assets, systems, and administration costs necessary for service continuity. First of all, holding harmless. Because this is important, ensuring that at least services do not go below how they were being delivered. For example, after the transfer of library service to the counties, do we have sufficient resources to ensure at least those libraries are running at the level at which they are running? But then, because devolution is about progress, is about improvements, then working out the cost to ensure that then we are also going above, so that then we are not just transferring the various inequities that we were trying to resolve by transferring the cost that it was taking to run it under the national government or under the central government, as it were, before, and transferring it to the county, yet those resources are completely insufficient and not helpful to the progress. And therefore, those two levels, holding harmless first, and then secondly, improving the quality of the services, so that then we can achieve our. But what has been the case? Now, the sectoral allocations here are how the growth of allocations to the national government sectors, 10 of them. And then the last table that has a blue line around it is the county governments. And here we compare the period 2016-2017, and then the period 2025-2026. I'll confirm that. I think there might be a small error there. But nonetheless, you notice that the growth from one year to another of the various sectors is actually so that's 2026-2027. Sorry, it's not 2016-2017. It's 2026-2027. Now you notice that in the agriculture and rural urban development is an 18% from 82 billion to 97 billion. Energy from 535 to 11%. General economic 58% growth. Health at the national level, and I remember what I asked, whether national government is performing the higher number of functions than the county governments, is 21%. Education, 9%. Law and order, 16%. Public administration, 14%. National security, 18%. Social protection, culture and recreation, 10%. Environmental, 11%. But the rise of the equitable share, or the shareable revenue, to counties is only rising by 1%. It cannot be that all the sectors of the national government are having a rise that is even above the inflation rate, that is even above the rate of growth of revenue percentage change, but for county governments, it's only 1% growth. There is something not adding up. And we think this is where now it is very clearly demonstrated that funds are not following functions at the county level. What about the formula? Perhaps then our solution, now remember that all I have discussed up to this point is basically on how division of revenue, the distribution between the national government and the county government. And the finding is already clear that it's skewed towards the national government and not the county government. But then the formula that distributes across counties, we seem also to have made some steps back, because the third formula was developed around what we call parameter-based. Now, what is parameter basis? Parameter basis is looking at what is the quality of services that we need and what is the burden of services that is required. So, for example, in healthcare, what is the disease burden in a certain county, and therefore allocating so that then we can address the need, so that resource allocation goes to address the need. The reverse side of it is what we had in Formula 1, Formula 2, and now what has become back as Formula 4 is the proxy indices. Proxy is where we assume that because a county has a higher population, therefore it also has a higher disease burden. That may be far from the truth. In some cases, for instance, a county may have very low population, like would be the case in Turkana, Marsabit, and some of the northern counties, but have a higher need in terms of the cost of providing the same service. But it's more because of the need, but also the distances and the topography, as it were. And therefore, moving us back to proxy indices means that then we are only estimating I know politically it seems very easy because then it reduces and minimizes the number of winners and losers. But then it also seems to be generating a new race, which I call is a race to the bottom. The race to the bottom is where, whereas devolution was established to ensure we are making progress, we seem to be seeing a very big focus on not improving. So counties are fighting, to remain poorer, so that then, because if poverty is the basis as a proxy for more resources, then there is no need to actually improve, because then that will mean that you get less resources. And therefore, the discussion, especially at the Senate, because that's where the formula comes for discussion, cannot continue to be about who wins and who loses, because losing and winning is a lose ground, as it were, in a case where services and the need for provision of proximate services and quality services should be the focus. I need to bring this to a close. But then there is one thing among the last things I wanted to mention, that functions, we also have a case of functions without funds. Funds that have already been distributed have been set aside but the disbursements come in very late. Now, what you look there is basically how we have been disbursing through the exchequers. And you notice, like, for instance, the last 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024, we disbursed most of the resources on the last quarter. And effectively, actually, some of the resources are sent as late as the last week of the financial year, which then means that then it is difficult to provide timely resources when you are receiving. But when you compare that, and we didn't have it on this table, when you compare that to the national government transfers to the MDAs, you notice that those ones actually receive their resources much, much earlier. As I conclude, we must move beyond minimums of just purely ticking the box that we are just above 15% of allocation to counties, to actual costs of service delivery, because this is what will ensure equitable sharing of benefits as well as burdens. And this is where I pull in the issue of public debt. Secondly, there is need to clearly define national interest and national obligations to protect the equitable share and ensure that county governments are not receiving the short end of the stick, but also to ensure that national government has the right amount of resources to provide services. But lastly, and most critical, is that both levels need to demonstrate accountability, because we, according to the Auditor General's Office of the Auditor General reports, both levels are being reported to have corruption and misuse of public resources, because we have to ensure that every shilling transferred is tied to a specific unbundled function for the benefit of all Kenyans. Remember, even the national government receives a transfer. It is not just counties that receive a transfer in the architect. To close, I want to read this quote that is on the commentary of the Constitution done by PLO Lumumba and Louis Francesi, professors. And they say this in their intro to the public finance section. If Kenya is to translate the bold new principles of the Constitution into policies that expand opportunities for the country's most disadvantaged people and marginalized communities, political leaders will need to abandon the backseat and provide real leadership. The wider challenge for Kenya's elite is to recognize that the real threat to the country's future is not from an imagined trade-off between economic growth and equity, but from a continued indifference to the inequalities that are destroying so much human potential, hammering productivity, and fueling social division. I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abraham Rugo. Thank you very much. I am sure I speak for all the participants when I say that that has been a most erudite and eye-opening address, where you raise many issues, whether the sharing formula is equitable, whether the parameters are correct, whether the criteria have been correctly defined, whether the sharing is cooperative and consensual, whether the functions are properly unbundled. You tell us about funds following functions going beyond financial resources. You tell us about whether you question whether there has been fairness and progress in the revenue sharing formula. And then you talk about the race to the bottom. I don't know whether this is bottom down. But very, very serious and germane issues for the conversation at hand. So I want to thank you very, very much. And participants, you could put questions and comments in the Q&A, which we will address at the end. Let me take this opportunity. I note now we have 250 participants and counting. Great. This is really great. Let me recognize Ms. Lorna Losem, CEO, County Assemblies Forum. Thank you very much for joining us. Very relevant discussion for county assemblies and for your forum. Dr. Leonard Monos, Deputy Clerk, Bungoma County Assembly. This list is, of course, by no means exhaustive, but I am recognizing particular individuals maybe whose role in this and the role they play in this devolution space is particularly relevant. So I now want to invite our first discussant, and thank you very much, Dr. Rugo, for keeping within your time. The comments and commendations are effusive in the Q&A. Now, the first discussant is going to be the Honorable Senator Tabitha Maureen Mutinda, CBS. Senator Mutinda is the Vice Chairperson of the Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, and she also serves in the very lofty perch of a board member of the Parliamentary Network on the World Bank and the IMF. Senator Mutinda holds a master's degree in business management and a PhD in business development. Senator Mutinda, welcome. The floor is yours. You have 15 minutes to make your presentation. Welcome. Take the floor.
Thank you so much. And once again, good morning to everyone. Thank you, Clark, and thank you, Professor Nyokabi, Executive Director, CPST, in collaboration with Strathmore. First, with my 15 minutes, I'll try and it's a lot in terms of what we do in Senate, but I'll try and summarize within the time that I've been given. And I'll start by saying that the principle of funds and funds following function is anchored in Article 175 of the Constitution of Kenya, which stipulates that county governments have reliable sources of revenue to enable them to govern and deliver services effectively. This is bastard also in Article 187, which provides that when a power of function is transferred from one level of government to another, the responsibility for the corresponding funding must also be transferred. These functions outlines the fourth schedule, which explicitly defines the functions of the national government versus the county government. The implementation of these functions require that for every devolved mandate, such as the primary healthcare, agriculture, or county transport, there must be a corresponding shift in revenue to ensure that the substantial and subnational units are not burdened with unfunded functions that compromise the service delivery to the people. Now, the role of the Senate is to serve as the primary legislative anchor for devolution, with a constitutional mandate under Article 96 to represent the interest of the 47 counties and their respective governments. As the institutional link, that is the Senate and the county government, the national government and the counties, the Senate ensures that the national policies do not undermine the stability or autonomy of devolved units. This representative role is fundamental in maintaining the balance of power. The Kenya tier is a two-tier, that is the national government and the county government, which fosters a self-rule and a shared role. In its lawmaking capacity as the Senate, our central role is legislative, which focuses on different types of bills that I'll be shortly taking you through. Basically, the division of revenue, we have CARA, we have the many different bills that we always focus on annually. Our critical role, as far as some of these bills are concerned, is the division of revenue, which I'll still be taking you through very shortly. Senate also serves key as an oversight legislative house, which focuses on ensuring that oversight is done through the different committees of the Senate. To be more specific, the County Public Accounts Committee, it interrogates the reports of the Auditor General. It does summon governors to be able to appear and to answer to the different questions of accountability as far as the utilization of funds is concerned. This oversight role ensures that funds follow function principle is really upheld. Senate also acts as a quasi-judicial capacity, which holds the final authority in the impeachment processes for high-ranking officials, include the governor. And last year but one, you saw we underwent the impeachment of the deputy president, which is one of our key roles. We can also do the impeachment of the president. Finally, the Senate participates in the vetting and approval of state appointments. Case example, the Commission of Revenue, among other stakeholders, we undertake these processes. The role of the Senate as far as the Finance and Budget Committee is concerned, where I serve as the vice chair of the committee, we have a chair. It comprises of 9 members in total, the chair and the vice chair, and 7 other members. Our key role is anchored in the PFM Act 412A and also the standing orders of the Senate, Standing Order 228. The main role is to investigate, inquire into, and report on all matters relating to coordination, to control and monitoring of county budgets, and to be able to examine the budget policy statement presented in the Senate annually, the report of the budget allocated to the constitutional commissions and independent offices or bodies, the division of revenue bill, the county allocation revenue bill, the county government's additional allocation bill, cash disbursement schedules for county governments. All matters related to resolutions in bills and appropriation for the share of national revenue amongst the counties. Matters concerning the national budget include the public finance and monetary policies, public debt, planning and development. And finally, pursuant to Article 228(6) of the Constitution, we do examine the report of the Controller of Budget on the implementation of the budgets for the county governments. I want to also, at this point, also mention briefly about our key stakeholders that we really work hand in hand as far as our processes are concerned. We have the Commission of Revenue Allocation, whose primary technical is to, with the committee, is to provide an independent recommendation on the equitable sharing of revenue between the national government and the county government among the 47 county governments. For the financial year 2025-2026, before we went on recess last year, the CRA was very instrumental in helping the committee to navigate the complexities of the 4th basis formula, which Budget Hub has really spoken about. We worked with them closely, ensuring that the baseline model was technically sound and data-driven. We have the National Treasury led by the CS, that is John Buddy, whom we work also very closely with as far as macro physical data, revenue projections, and the overall budget envelope are concerned. We have the COG led by the governor of Kakamega, who's the chair of finance, who represents the Council of Governors as far as the different bills are concerned. We have the Control of Budget, who serves as a financial gatekeeper. Their role is to mainly provide the committee with the quarterly and annual reports on how the counties are actually spending the money allocated to them. This data really allows the committee to be able to perform the oversight function effectively by flagging low absorption of development funds or excessive recurrent expenditure by the counties. The COB also helps the committee identify the legislative interventions that are needed or the gaps that are needed and on how to improve the physical discipline. We have the Office of the Auditor General, a very critical office as far as the Committee of Finance and Budget is concerned in the Senate. It provides the audited accounts. that serve as the legal baseline of revenue sharing. Why? Because under the Constitution, the equitable share must be at least 15% of the most recently, and the key word here is the recently audited, and the other keyword is approved accounts, because as much as they are recent, but they're still not approved, then it becomes difficult for us to be able to use the audited report. So the Office of the Auditor General rigorously audits these reports and enables the Finance Committee to uphold counties accountable for every shilling, ensuring that the funds follow functions, translate into tangible services for the public or for the citizens of the Republic of Kenya. The Senate Sunday Committee also Finance extends its gratitude to other key stakeholders like ISPAC. We've really worked closely with ISPAC. Not to forget Budget Hub, and I'm always very happy with Budget Hub because they've given opportunity to very young, intelligent, brilliant minds that are able to appear before committee, and we are able to discuss, and they are able to submit their views as far as different bills are concerned. We have the County Assembly Forum that also we work very closely with. All these stakeholders have helped the committee in the bridge and the gap between the Senate and the citizens. During the financial year, the last financial year, 2025-2026 budget cycle, the joint input in the public hearing ensured that we were able to finalize the 415 billion allocation that we concluded that still underwent a mediation process. Fiscal decentralization is not just a government process, but a national dialogue involving professionals, grassroots advocates, and legislators. This collaborative framework has also been able to make the principle of funds following functions sustainable. The role of Parliament as far as the effective fiscal decentralization within emphasis on legislative framework, budget approval, and oversight mechanism entails different aspects. For example, Parliament's role plays a central role in Kenya's fiscal decentralization, acting as the primary legal and financial architect for the 47 county governments. Its mandate is split between the national government, between the National Assembly, which handles the national budget and the macro-physical policy. And now the Senate, where I sit and where I serve, which is constitutionally mandated to protect the financial and political interest of the counties. Parliament has also been able to advance fiscal decentralization through very critical pillars. 3 critical pillars. That is one, the legislative framework, which includes what? First, it includes the bills that I mentioned earlier. To be more specific, the Division of Revenue Act. Each year, we do, as Parliament, enact this law to determine the vertical split, how the total national raised revenue is divided between the national government and the 47 counties collectively. We have the County Allocation Revenue Act. Following now the Division of Revenue Act, the Senate leads the enactment of CARA, which determines the horizontal split, the exact amount of what each county, among the 47 counties, how much each county is supposed to be allocated, but still based on the formula that was that is normally prescribed, that takes 5 years period. We have the PFM Act, that is the Public Finance Management Act, 2012. Parliament enacted this fundamental law to standardize the financial reporting, budgeting cycles, and the debt management. It ensures that counties operate under the same fiscal responsibility principle as the national government. We have the funds following function principle, which is our main agenda today. It's guided by Article 187 of the Constitution, and Parliament ensures that that whenever a function, like for example, health and agriculture, which is devolved, is transferred to counties, the corresponding resources and infrastructures are also legally transferred to the respective counties and departments at the county level. We also have the budget approval mechanism. One, we have the budget policy statement, which is an annual process that we undertake as a committee. The Senate and the National Assembly does review the PBS to ensure that the strategic priorities of counties are reflected. This stage is critical for aligning the national economic policy and with the county level needs. We have also the revenue sharing basis. Now, this one is normally after every 5 years, and then the Senate does develop it and approves the basis for sharing revenues among counties. I want to really appreciate the Senate this year because apparently it was one of the processes that was smooth with the leadership of the Senate and Budget Committee, led by our chair and my other members that we are in this particular committee. It was smooth. It was not so political that like what we saw in the 12th previous parliament. For the 2025 to the 2030 cycle, the Senate adopted the fourth basis formula, which prioritizes service demand, and it was guided by the different parameters that we were able to use. That is the population parameter, the basic equal share parameter, the poverty index parameter, and the land area parameter. You realize the land does not increase, but the population does increase. So we were able to balance this parameter depending on the data that was provided for us by the two different stakeholders. We also have the approval of the conditional grants. The Senate is the primary defender of the county interest, as earlier mentioned, when it comes to additional allocation. Apart from the equitable share, we have the conditional grants, some that are conditional and others that are also unconditional. Under Article 202 of the Constitution, the national government may provide grants from its own share of revenue to counties, either conditionally or unconditionally. The Senate is responsible for considering and passing the county government's additional allocation bill. These are additional funds to the county governments. The bill provides the legal framework for the transfer of the conditional grants from the national government and development partners to the 47 counties. Now, without the Senate's approval for these specific funds, then it is not possible to move these funds from the consolidated fund to the county revenue fund. So we play a critical role in ensuring that these approvals are done. Now, through our committee, the Senate interrogates the conditions attached and sees that if they are very punitive or very complex for the county governments, and does try to smoothen some of these conditions. So it ensures that the conditions are not punitive. We have, for example, during the financial year 2025-2026, as you saw previously, there were so many strikes, especially in the medical space. The doctors, we've seen up and down strikes. We had also the CHP budgets. We know that
Honorable Senator, I will extend 3 minutes to you. We are past the time, but 3 minutes it is.
Thank you, and my apologies for that. I think it's a passion and the interest. So we were able to ensure that the doctor's salary arrears and the community health promoters' budgets have been transferred so that service delivery is extensively offered. We have the equalization fund, which is dedicated specifically to providing basic services, which include water, health, facilities, roads, and the electricity. So as I try to sum up, we've had extensive challenges, and at the same time, we've also we have been able to have milestones in this particular process. Some of the milestones was that we ensure that the county assemblies have financial autonomy. When we passed the bill, we were able to ensure 415 billion equitable share has been able to be given to the county in the last financial year. We've also been able to adapt the formula, as I've been able to say, and also the oversight milestone that we've been able to summon governors, and we've seen some of the cases that have been transferred to EACC. Some have been recommended to the Office of the DPP for further forensic audit, and to be able to bring culprits to book. Of course, we've had a few challenges. Some of the transfer of functions have been delayed. We've also had sometimes the minister delaying transfer of funds to the county governments on time, which has also hindered timely service delivery. We've also had unfunded mandate traps. As I said earlier, the on-source revenue is another factor. We've been able to push the county governments to ensure they concentrate on maximizing the on-source revenue and reduce maximum dependency from the national government. As I conclude, Clark, I would like to say that this journey towards effective fiscal decentralization in Kenya, particularly as we navigate the 2026-2025 financial year, has transitioned from a phase of experimental implementation to one of institutional maturity. This is a collective responsibility for all of us as leaders, as professionals, and also as citizens. We need to come together to ensure that collectively we achieve a goal of taking this country to the next level, and also ensuring that funds follow function. I submit, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senator, for that very passionate delivery, speaking to the role of your committee and your committee in particular, and the Senate in general, in this whole discourse on funds following functions. You spoke to the roles of the various players. You spoke to the partners with whom you work, and the stakeholders. And it's interesting that in some way you spoke to milestones as well as to some of the challenges that your committee and that this whole conversation faces. It's interesting that some of what you celebrate as milestones from the previous, the keynote speakers, to him, he laments some of those. Some of the challenges you speak to are they are shared. He also shares those challenges. A question that no doubt our participants will be thinking about, and which maybe each of you could speak to at the end, is the balance of power in this whole discourse of fiscal decentralization and funds following functions. Do the players that need to have oversight, for example, like the Senate and the legislature, do they have the requisite clout when push comes to shove? Are they able to adequately influence the process in the manner that they would like, so that the laments of Dr. Rugo are minimized? Are we satisfied that with 415 billion? Because from the previous presentation, this figure should probably be a lot more. The delays in agreeing on county additional allocations, very protracted, leading to long periods when funds are available, but they cannot be accessed by the counties. The budget approval process, does the Senate play a sufficient role in the budget approval process? What can be done? All these are important questions for this discussion. So thank you very much for that presentation. And we now would like to invite the second discussant, if she is on board, Ms. Phyllis Macau. Is Ms. Macau on board?
I think Mrs. Macau was to take her flight at 12:10, so we'll miss. I think we'll miss her inputs on this one.
Yes. Oh yes, I think I saw. Yeah, I saw her send a message that she has had to take her flight, and so we will not be able to have that discussion. So we will now then go to hearing the questions and observations made by various participants. And I will also ask at the end the presenter and the discussant to say something about what the questions I was going to have asked Ms. Macau. But I would like to pose the following questions, which have come from the floor, and we will allow others. The following questions have come from the floor. The first question is comparatively, and this will go to Dr. Rugo. Comparatively in the African region, which other country under a similar devolved system has actually costed functions and allocates money via this costing, or is the practice just percentile based like in Kenya? So I hope you got that question. So maybe the other question that has come through, who determines what county functions should be assumed by national government in the national interest? The executive at its sole discretion, a majority of governors following consultation. So those are the questions, whether it's the executive at its discretion, whether it's a majority of governors following consultation, and how would we guard against usurpation by a national government or dereliction of duty by inept governors? Maybe some, Dr. Rugo, you could say something about those, very direct, before we go to other questions. And participants, please feel free to send in more questions through the Q&A. Dr. Rugo.
Thank you so much, Bwana Clark. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to engage. I'm sad that I wouldn't listen to Phyllis Makau. I was really looking forward to hear her perspectives because I know she's worked on this. But yes, so in terms of which other countries, let me start with that one. And then I come to the question of the decision about who plays what role. So there are not many countries that have the kind of system of devolution that we have. And in Africa, largely we are talking of South Africa. As you know, the Kenyan constitution borrowed heavily from South Africa, India, with their fiscal commission, and a bit of US, especially with the presidential system and the committee system and the like. Now, as I mentioned earlier, costing is not an easy, and I actually did say in my presentation that I am not aware of a country that has actually done proper costing. What happens is both a technical and a political decision on what to transfer and what proportion of resources. So the percentile figure of 15%, at least 15%, it's important for us to always qualify that the Constitution did not say that 15% of the resources need to be sent to counties. It says at least 15%. And this was to protect with the reality that the national government was definitely going to have an upper hand in this entire conversation. But there was a clarity that based by the constitution drafters that there was no way we were going to spend less than 15% at the county level, given the quantum of services. South Africa has attempted with their with their provinces, because remember South Africa has the national government, then it has the provinces, and then they have the municipalities, and the metros, some of them. But remember, South Africa is also a very huge economy. It's a very huge country, as it were. But they have not also figured out the entire costing. So it's really a proportion given the kind of functions that, and it's a progressive process, as it were. India tried to work it the other way around by not trying to work out so much by starting from the revenue side. So by distributing revenue, but remember India has a population of about 1.4 billion people. It's basically the entire of Africa in terms of population size. And then they have actually distributed taxation measures, and they based on that and the regional economic potential of each of them, then they are able to provide the services at that particular. So for instance, things like a payee is actually collected at the state level. And as it were. In terms of the national government, who determines what amounts, I was just referring to a court decision that was made on 3rd of December 2020. And this was on a matter that had to do with the interpretation of the national interest. And one of the things that the court observed, that the national government cannot decide for itself what is its proportion of resources. That needs to happen in a process that, first of all, is consultative, and therefore, at the moment, the practice and the key, and I think Senator Tabitha did mention, though I disagree with that approach, is that the National Treasury plays a very key role in determining what resources go to the national government. But the National Treasury is an institution of the national government, and therefore one could argue that it has certain interests. One would have expected that then this becomes the discussion that happens within the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC, where basically you have the representatives of the county governments, you have the representatives of the national government, and when it comes to the parliament, then it becomes a discussion where the National Assembly plays more of its national role and not so much in the protecting of interests. But of course, there are many other reasons why, for instance, the National Assembly would want the resources for the national government to remain high, one of which is that the percentage of the CDF, the national government CDF, is based on the proportion of resources going to the national government. And therefore, already there is almost an inbuilt private interest of the members to make sure that the quantile or the proportion of resources going to the national government increases, because that also increases their kitty. And that's part of the reason why the Supreme Court, actually, I believe in my reading, did argue that the Constitution, the CDF is unconstitutional in every way. I think that's the way I would respond. So at the moment, we don't have a majority of governors making a decision because, as I have said, it's even very difficult without the kind of discussion that we are having here to determine what is the appropriate proportion of resources that should go to either level of government.
Thank you very much. A specific question has been put to Senator Tabitha Mutinda. And this question is, Senator Mutinda, the principle of funds following functions is the bedrock of fiscal decentralization. Yet the health sector remains the most volatile example of this gap. Over the last 15 years, Senate Health Committee reports have highlighted a paradox where access to facilities has expanded, but we see chronic strikes by practitioners, dire conditions in county referral hospitals, and uneven absorption of national policies like universal health coverage. So the question is, based on the committee's data, how do you quantify the qualitative value for money we have achieved in health service delivery since 2013? Is, in the Senate's view, has the devolution of health services transitioned from structural success to functional failure? So is this a success or is this a failure? And what specific fiscal interventions can the Senate push to ensure that policy absorption at the county level is no longer hindered by exchequer releases? A mouthful, but I think you get the essence of it. An example is given of health services and the devolution of that and the unbundling of that and funds following functions, and whether you think that is a success or otherwise, and what can be done. Senator Mutinda.
Thank you so much. Apparently, probably the discussant has noted that I also serve in the Committee of Health.
Committee. Yes, you do serve in the Health Committee. A very apt question for you.
Exactly. And I would like to say that the question is very valid. Because with the kind of strikes that we've seen and the kind of issues that have been raised, the issue is still basically on the challenge that is in place, that we acknowledge, that is the challenge of delayed disbursement of these funds. Because if the funds are timely disbursed to the county government, then the county governments are able to budget correctly within those timelines. They are able to offer services to the people on time. And you find that the reason we really pushed for 415 billion as a committee of Senate is because of the many other factors. Case example, the issue of the CBAs that have been reached by the doctors for quite a long time. They had not been adhered to. The issue of CHPs, whereby it's a 50-50 share, the national government and the county government, but still these funds needed to be transferred as grants to the county governments, and delays had been in place. So So all this discussion still narrows into the matters of finances. It narrows to the issues of whereby the national treasury really focuses on the national government timely disbursements of funds and really delays funds to the county governments. As Budget Hub clearly stated that at times it is in the last week. So if all these funds are disbursed on time, these delays that have been there or these challenges that have been there, especially in the health sector, definitely will be sorted out. You find that for us to have really agreed on the 415 is because we factored a 5.86 billion for the medical equipments that quite for a long time had really been a challenge, among many other issues within the health sector. Where I sit in the health committee, we've also questioned the minister, that is Honorable Duale, as to why they factored hospital developments at the county level without transferring that particular fund directly to the county governments to be able to maximize on the hospitals that actually they've been able to build, so that we do not have just bare structures that are lagging behind and they are not able to offer Kenyans services as required. So this whole issue is just a matter of national treasury prioritizing funds to the county governments on time. This will be able to give Kenyans this quality services that are needed. But at the same time, because I oversight hospitals, we are able to go as the committees of the Senate to different counties and to be able to maximally see on the issues that are in place. And you find that right now the hospitals have got autonomy to be able to utilize funds. There are those delays that are also coming from the national government as far as share reimbursements are concerned. But these are issues that we're still continuing to address because without these funds, then it becomes difficult for the health sector to be able to continue being strong.
Thank you very much. I think more questions for the Senate. You are going to have to to carry the cross of the Senate, Senator. But before I put the next question, let me recognize also we've been joined on the as participants by deputy clerks from the County Assembly of Kirinyaga, Deputy Clerk Elizabeth Njoroge, also County Assembly of Mombasa, Deputy Clerk Christine Akwa. Welcome. So there's a question here, Senator Tabitha Mutinda, you may want to speak to. Peter Owiti, as well as similar question by Ntipapa Olechurie. And they are asking how you reconcile the autonomy of counties with the Senate's role in the impeachment of governors. Peter Owiti describes the Senate as having joined the club of colonizers. And Mpapa Olechurie says there's a discordance between the autonomy of counties and their capacity and fiscal decentralization, and he or she, I don't know, Ntipapa, whether that's male or female, sorry, but Ntipapa Olechurie they ask, why does the Senate retain the authority to approve the impeachment of governors? How does this oversight role align with the principle of devolved autonomy? And what implications does it have for the balance of power, accountability, and resource control between national and county governments? I don't envy you.
Our key role,
and Dr. Rugo, you will want to chip in after that. So let me hear your thoughts on that. Senator, yeah, you have the first go.
Thank you so much. Our key role as Senate and as legislators is legislation, oversight, and representation. But more so today, as far as this topic of the funds following function is concerned, the main role is the discussion of oversight role that the Senate does undertake. And when it comes to the process of impeachment, which is a role of the Senate, as I earlier explained in my submissions, you realize that it's as a quasi-judicial house, it's a process that is normally completely very fair, because these governors will definitely appear and the county assemblies will definitely appear represented by their councils, whereby we fairly get to hear them out, be able to listen to the issues that have been raised. And you've seen how fair it has been. There are those governors who have ended up being still reinstated back to the county governments. There are those ones who've also been, fully impeached and gone home. These are processes that have not really favored anybody. These are processes that have been undertaken very fairly to be able to ensure that the people of that particular county do not feel there is bias when it comes to specific counties. But this has cut across the different counties since devolution basically started. And so as our role really pertains as far as oversight role is concerned, from where we sit as the Finance and Budget Committee in the Senate, we are mandated with the task of ensuring that counties get more monies. And this is where the discussion now becomes different, because at times it seems like we are giving monies to the governors as individuals. These monies are not going to the governors. These monies are going to the county government. But the governor is the CEO of this particular county. He's the one vested with the mandate to be able to ensure that those particular funds follow the specific functions. It is so sad sometimes when we find through our different committees, like the PAC committee. I've also served in the county special committee, whereby we also oversight the special funds, the PAC committee, which also looks at the audit reports. And you find that funds that were set aside for a specific function have been allocated to a different function, definitely. And then that will bring problems to the county CEO. But you realize the Senate, as I said earlier, we were able to give the members of the county assembly an autonomy for them to stop being so dependent to the county executive, whereby now through that they really had to beg the county governors to be able to get their salary, their allowances, among any other funds that they do get. And with this autonomy that they have today, they are now empowered to be able to ensure that they undertake their county or their county assembly oversight role without feeling biased, without pressure, and maximally, so that before the matter even comes to the Senate, they've been able to address it at the county level. So it is a legislative process, and it's normally a fair process, because if the accused will feel that they are not satisfied with the impeachment process, they are free to go to the court of law to still get further hearing. I submit.
Thank you very much. Dr. Rugo, any thoughts on that before I present you with your own set of questions?
Yeah, I think for me the struggle is twofold. One is as the senator has said, so on one hand, how much the facilitatory role of the Senate to make sure that the county assemblies and the county government structures are functional enough so that not everything finds its way to the Senate. When you look at the trend of impeachments, you notice that first of all, in my opinion, they have been longer than necessary, even within the Senate. It's like the entire judicial process is being executed at the Senate. How much can we build the capacity? But two, not only the capacity, the facilitatory role of ensuring that the county governments, as you're saying, actually have the sufficient resources to perform their functions, part of which then will reduce these, very limited pack of resources that then create a lot of, attention and fights, for resources at the county at the county level. I do not dispute the role of the Senate to have the final word about impeachment, but I think there can be more work done to ensure, first of all, there are sufficient resources at the county level, which reduces, the fight for the very limited resources that are available. But secondly, there's also capacity, so that then to make sure that only the necessary issues come to the Senate and not every matter of impeachment finds its way to the Senate. That's my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much. There is a question here for you, Dr. Rugo, from Osman Mohammed, who says, a very informative presentation by Bajeti Hub, by Dr. Rugo, I believe you mean. But the question is, what has Bajeti Hub done or is doing to address the gaps and inequalities in allocation of funds between the two levels of government and influence the budget making process at the Senate and the national assembly? And then you could as well, while you answer that, maybe you could also speak to this question, and maybe you made some reference to it in your presentation. Anonymous says, during consideration of the third and fourth basis of revenue sharing, the Senate used a base figure, that being the last equitable share, as one of the conditions to ensure that no county is disadvantaged by receiving less than its previous allocation. The question is this practice anchored in policy or law? And is it a prudent or good practice? What should be done to ensure that counties receive adequate resources to deliver on their functions optimally? But speak to the use of the best formula and whether it's good practice. But then would it be acceptable to you, Dr. Rugo, because you spoke a little about, would it be acceptable to you that any formula is utilized that results in a county receiving less funds before the formula than, after the formula than before, than in the previous formula?
Good.
Please.
Thanks a lot. Let me first of all start with the fact that Bajeti Hub.
You can't be heard. I think you are off. You can't be heard.
Can you hear me now?
Still, unless it's only on my end.
No, we can hear him.
Can you hear Dr.
Just on your end. Yeah, just on your end.
Yes, he's clear.
Yes,
Okay, very well. Proceed.
Good. So thank you for that. So first of all is to state that I am a Kenyan, and Bajeti Hub is a civil society organization like every other organization. And therefore, one of our big jobs has been actually to facilitate public engagement. So as we sit, and I think the senator did speak to it, we have made a presentation on division of revenue for the last 13 years. Every time the division of revenue discussion has happened, and literally on every budget decision, Clark, you know that. Secondly, on the formula, we have actually critiqued and presented a memorandum on each of the formulas. And I saw a question around the formula, and I'll come to that as I answer your second question. And this is based on evidence, on analysis, and even providing scenarios, alternatives. If you go this way, this is what you achieve. If you go this way, this is what you achieve. And we don't know any other way apart from appearing in the formal presentations where formal discussions are being held. We are not able to influence all the politics that go into some of these decisions at the end of the day, but we do our part of making sure that we rally. So we have budget facilitators we have trained in all the 47 counties who then make their own presentations through their own counties, and push for at that level. But for ourselves, then we engage both at the National Assembly and the Senate. But let me go to the second question. I hope that helps, and you can check us on Bajeti Hub, our website. We have all the information there. Secondly, let me come to the question of the formula. Now, and allow me to combine that with another question that was being asked about why, the question of proxies, and why we went back to proxies and whether that's a good way. But from what has been asked, I wanted to say that one, the Constitution and the PFM Act is cognizant that at every time you must apply a principle called holding harmless, which basically means you must not provide resources that are lesser than what was sufficient to provide services to a population. This is what it means. It basically means if you had 20,000 children in the ECD, which is part of what counties provide, there's no way you can in the following year, there's no way you can provide less resources, and even sometimes the population is going up. Where it gets a bit murky is a question of what if the need has been addressed? Do you continue allocating resources? And that is where I struggle with the question of just using proxies. I know there was a critique that there was a lot of imbalance in terms of data. I know that's why you went back to proxies, and CRA tried to justify. But given the state of the country and where we are right now, I still hold that the measures of need, because we did not fail. First formula, we used proxies. Second formula, we used proxies, as you have said. Third formula, we moved to parameters of need, levels of urbanization, the need, the agricultural level, water access level, and the like. What that helps you in a country that is already developing and improving is that then you are able to put resources where there is still greater need while still using the measures of equitable sharing, equal sharing. There was a percentage of equal sharing, a smaller percentage of population to hold harmless. So I am of the view that holding harmless needs to be maintained. So no county should be disproportionately discriminated, especially against the figure that they received previously. However, that should not just be, the new allocation should not just be based that you have more people. It should be based on the fact that you also have certain needs, because the essence of devolution, and I know you can say that perhaps this is what we should throw to the equalization fund. There's that discussion, in terms of argument. So I still hold that moving the parameter way is what, because we are also getting to a level where we are moving from the basic access challenges per se, where there wasn't a health facility, to a point where now you have health facilities in some counties in the excess. and CRA has documented this. You have certain counties, I'll use one example like Kitui, that had an excess of dispensaries at a figure of about 104. I just use that as an example. There are many others. And now what you are starting to deal with is the quality of the service. Is the efficiency of the service that is informed, but what is the need level. So the using of the base. Now remember, we have argued that the base has an issue because the base is actually, again, is a critique on the National Assembly in every way, because why should we today in 2026 be applying using the audited accounts? Which company in the world is using audited accounts of 2021 that have been approved, which then basically means that there is no energy. There's a bit of lethargy in trying to make sure that we have the right audited, because then the difference is so big. You're talking of about 2.1 trillion then, and now we're already at a budget of about 2.8 trillion. I hope that does help just to unpack some of the discussion. I know the time is short, so I'm trying to compress so many technical conversations in a short answer, but I hope that does help answer the question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure it does help quite a bit. We're moving to a close now. So let me give you how we are going to proceed. We are moving to close now. So I will give one question from the participants to Senator Tabitha Mutinda. And after you have answered the question, I will invite you to take 2 minutes to give your closing thoughts. And then one last question to Dr. Rugo. And similarly, I want you to have the last word, having been the keynote presenter, your final thoughts. So first to you, Senator Tabitha Mutinda. This question comes from a gentleman known as Jacob Ndambuki Ngumi. He says he's the Secretary General of the Kenya Devolution CSOs Working Group. And the question is for Senator Tabitha Mutinda. And the question is, IGRTC has unpacked functions and budgeted them for transfer to counties. But the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee and the summit have delayed the transfer. So what's the role of the Senate, or what can the Senate do to push for the transfer? So I assume that those facts, assuming that those facts are correct, and if they are not, you can say they are not. So then you are, please respond to that. And when you are done with that, your final thoughts on this whole discourse and how we move forward. Senator Tabitha Mutinda, the floor is yours.
Once again, thank you so much. Now, on the issue of the IGRTC, it's an issue that the Senate committee, the Committee of Devolution, to be much more specific, is the committee that has been mandated as far as the functions, devolved functions are concerned. As we speak currently, it's an ongoing matter. We've been able to, when I was in the other committee for Special Funds Committee, we were able to summon the CEO of IGRTC. And the challenges they are facing are more as far as the national government element is concerned, because after devolution came in, you find that there are some assets that are still held at the national level that need to be brought down to the county levels. And there has been a challenge in terms of valuation. But that process is currently ongoing with the Committee of Devolution as you speak. Clark had also seen another question as far as the issue of the issues between the governors and their deputy governors. Someone had asked that. And I would like to quickly respond and say, those are still issues that are being taken care by the Committee of Devolution as far as how the deputy governors and the governors are supposed to work together, because we've come across whereby governors and their deputies are completely on a different page, affecting delivery of services in the different counties. Just to mention, as far as the formula is concerned, Clark, you realize that we use the baseline of the 387 billion. That is what was still distributed among the 47 counties. The additional 27.6 billion is what was distributed as per the parameters that we earlier mentioned, and also Budget Hub was able to mention: the equal share, the poverty index, geographical index. That is what was distributed now to still to the 47 counties, but further to that, so as to ensure counties did not get the same amount as per the financial year 2024 and 2025, 4.4 billion was set aside specifically for 12 counties that the allocation previously has been low at below 7 billion, so that they can be able to catch up with the other counties that their allocation is a bit more. So as far as these parameters has been used, there has been total fair distribution of the equitable share by the committee and the Senate agreeing to this formula. This formula has been approved by the Senate, and so it becomes law. My final remarks, first of all, is to really thank the organizers of this webinar, very informative discussion that we've been able to have. I look forward to more and more discussion of this. As I said earlier, it is this discussion as us as the representative of the people, as legislators, as professionals also in this particular field, all the stakeholders that we continue working with. I really want to appreciate and say that the Constitution is clear as far as funds following function is in place. It is law. The only problem that we have as a country is that National Treasury has acted for long, delaying funds on time to the county government. It is not a beg for the county government. It is their right to be able to have these funds. It is in law that these funds should be dispersed on a specific timeline. It is the role of the National Treasury to continue ensuring that they disperse on time. With those many and few, I submit, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Senator, for those responses and your final thoughts and your discussion points. We now come to you, Dr. Rugo, to answer this final question and also to give us your reflections. The question that has been put to you, and participants, please accept my apologies. There have been a lot of questions that have come through, but we had only so much time. This should have been the substance of a conference of a week or two, but we have had to do this in 2 hours, and hopefully just excite the interest in the dialogue continuing, and we'll continue to have Professor Nyokabi Kamau. This area is not exhausted and is really core, and we may consider whether on another occasion we want to do some more work in this area. So, Dr. Rugo, the question to you is, what parameters would you and Budgeti propose to inform the revenue allocation formula other than this formula that you lament? So the onus has been put on you. So you give us, since you don't like these ones, you give us your parameters. You give us your formula. And when you conclude on that, please give us your final thoughts on this discussion.
Thank you so much. I suspected that might come. So first of all is that we did submit both to the Senate and the CRA our thoughts, very, very detailed thoughts. We desired that there perhaps could have been more vigorous debate around it, but that did not quite happen. The third formula, there was quite some vigorous, and Clark will remember the third formula. There was quite, in fact, including the various senators coming with their own variations of the same formula, because just of the energy that generates. I think and I believe that it is important for us to allocate resources based on the needs we are trying to address, because that's what devolution is all about. Devolution is not about just pushing money and saying, Nyagenya does not have sufficient, so let's just add them more money. Let's now add Tabitha more money. Let's add Abraham more money now, and the like. The reason for that is that it is only possible to then be able to put accountability measures against specific functions. So, for instance, we are trying to address child mortality rates. And therefore, the reason why we want to give resources against that is that in 3 years, the citizens of that county can be able to assess what has our governor done. So I think the parameters we did put across are around the core functions of counties. So they are around how are we improving food security through agriculture. They are around healthcare, because healthcare is still a big trade support and development, is a critical. Fiscal discipline, I know that has had its own arguments, OSR, raising your revenue and all that because of the gaming that has gone into that. And therefore, they become then parameters which are measures of services. And when those services are being improved, then it makes a reason for us to be able to even improve on the quality so that's what we submitted, and I'm happy even to share our submission. It's on our website. It was a very detailed discussion. But having said that, and therefore those are the parameters of need. What is the agriculture? So that a county that has got more agricultural needs gets more resources on that parameter, less than the one that has much less. A county that has got more disease burden gets more resources to address that disease burden. That's the only way you lift the entire country, to the same level of development. Secondly, and now my closing remarks, I still do not agree with the use of the current figure, because it's the same figure that we are saying is not equitable because of the things I did demonstrate with how division of revenue has been happening. So we've been raising 387, we go to 4, I think from there we went to 415. Now we are pushing for 420. But what is 420? What is 420 compared to the services? Is it, and yet, because what is the 5 billion, which I said is just 1% increment? Moving forward, I still believe that there is a discussion. The CRA has tabled their recommendations. For instance, for this year, they are talking of 458 billion. We asked the same questions to them. How do you know whether 458 billion is sufficient? And that's the reason why they are unbundling. And the proximate costing of functions, I still think is a discussion, and it's not an academic one. So in my closing remarks, I want to say that is a discussion that still needs to remain open, to be held, so that then it becomes critical. Lastly, is to say that it is important for us to remain faithful to our system of devolution. Our system of devolution is a unitary devolution. In other words, county governments and national government are tied together at the hip. Now, I have seen many arguments that counties can be sufficient through their own OSR. But remember that the business where you are collecting the business permit and the food permit and the NEMA permit is also owned by the same person who is paying payee, is paying VAT, is paying excise duty. And that is why the Constitution put a framework of distributing nationally raised revenue across board. And therefore, unless we change our Constitution, county governments and the national government are going to increasingly remain dependent on nationally raised revenue being distributed equitably. Not entertainment taxes, they can only go so far. Not land rates, they can only go so far. Because otherwise, you create a system of double taxation, which can be very... Lastly, is to say that we are Kenyans in this generation. I think we also owe it to ourselves to think of alternatives of how we can improve our system of governance so that it delivers. and put parameters of how we assess leaders based on how are they improving on service delivery, both the national government and the county government. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope this has been insightful. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much on behalf of Budget Hub.
It definitely has been very insightful. I think I am able to say that on behalf of the participants. And so we want to thank you very much for your keynote speech, as well as all the interventions you've had, Dr. Rugo. We would like to thank you also very much, Senator Tabitha Mutinda, for your reflections on this subject. As we come to the end now, we want to thank the CPST very much. Professor Nyokabi Kamau, accept the thanks of all the participants, you together with the CPST, together with the Strathmore University, for putting forward this very important topic for discussion. I want to thank in a most special way all the participants. We went up to 260 at some point. All the participants who have been able to join us in this discussion. The dialogue continues. I cannot think of anything more important, because at the center of our constitutional dispensation, if our constitutional dispensation is about anything, it is about devolution. And devolution succeeds or fails depending on how funds are shared, how funds are made available. And we have seen all the challenges that we are facing in this area, right from the formula to disbursement to definitions and all that. The dialogue continues as we begin another budget cycle. We invite all participants, all players, all Kenyans to be actively involved. This is our country, and we need to be actively involved in securing for ourselves that which we intended when we gave ourselves the constitution that we have. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And again, apologies to all participants whose questions could not be read out, and to the keynote speaker and the discussants. They are nonetheless important, and thank you for staying with us. So I hand over at this point. I have appreciated the opportunity, the privilege to be your moderator. I hand over at this point to the host, Professor Nyokabi Kamau. Santeni.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Clerk Mr. Nyegenye. You have done this really well. You never disappoint when it comes to moderating our webinars. I think this is the third time you're our moderator. We appreciate you. You have thanked the keynote speaker. I want to thank you again. Dr. Rugo, it was a good teaser. You know, I sat through, sometimes webinars I come and kind of lose concentration. This one, you could not step out. Senator, just well done. You are confronted with so many questions. At some point, I was like, I hope there is someone near the senator to give her the data. But you have handled it with so much grace, and just showing and debunking that myth that sometimes politicians don't know. You know what you're doing, and you understand your mandate, and it has come out very clearly. And even the efforts you're making, particularly in oversight. Without going to so much information, it's almost 12. So in the next 2 minutes, Mr. Nyegenye, thank you. Thank you very much. Marianne and your team from IPPG, thank you for partnering with us, and we partner more to do, even if it's a repeat of this. As you say, this was only a teaser. We could even think of an afternoon or a morning, a breakfast physical, and have even deeper conversations about this. I want to thank Ms. Wayua and your team, the webinar committee, how you think about these topics. Mr. Clark, there's a committee that actually comes up with these topics. They do a calendar. They even suggest who are the speakers, and they've never disappointed. Now, as I finish, I want to welcome you all to keep checking our sites. Our next webinar is going to be in April. We'll communicate the date. It's going to be Beyond Tokenism, Strategically Mainstreaming Disability Inclusion in Governance. That's another topic we thought to be interesting, particularly even as we think we are going through the budgeting process, because there are some people that get forgotten and it's more of tokenism. So we thought this would be a good topic. You're welcome. Please join us. Keep checking on our sites. With those many remarks, we have 3 minutes. Have a very, very good afternoon. Enjoy your lunch and see you in our next webinar. Asanteni sana. God bless you all. Asanteni. Thank you.